Next up, we have Alexa. Alexa's 3 favorite things are her family and friends who taught her to be brave, her cat Arlo, who she loves despite the constant scratching, and VHS tapes that allow her to remember and learn from the past.
And don't forget about her love for basketball and late-night snacks.
I was always taught to be proud of being a First Nations woman, to wear my headdress with pride. But society looked at that and seen 2 things wrong with it, that I was First Nations and that I was a girl. The world seemed like it was always against me, and because of this, I was always too afraid to speak up. So eventually, I gave up trying. Indigenous girls all around me are treated like this, and girls just like me feel like this every day. An estimated 1,000 to 4,000 Indigenous women have gone missing or been murdered since the 1970s, these only being the documented cases. It is 5 times more likely for an Aboriginal woman to face homicide rather than a non-Aboriginal woman. In the past year, I've had 4 of my friends go missing. It was happening so often that I started not to care. Everybody did. The police got so used to these cases that the majority of them didn't do anything, and you didn't hear about disappearances until weeks after it was reported. I remember being pulled out into the hallways at school and everything going blurry. I couldn't hear a thing they were asking me, and finally, once I came back to reality, it was complete panic. Wondering where she could be, wondering what my life would be like without her. She ended up being completely fine, but for a moment, my world fell apart. These days, I ask my friends every day if they're okay, even if they make fun of me for it. I guess there's just a part of me that feels if I don't ask, somehow I'll miss something and I'll lose them. And honestly, I'm afraid to lose them, especially the ones who know everything about me. There's such little education surrounding this issue that I didn't even start learning about it before recently. Not that the concept didn't affect me before then. See, I live only a few blocks away from a 7-Eleven, the holy grail of fried foods and Slurpee, but I will only allow myself to go there before dark because if I go past that, I feel I will become another statistic. I've even been told not to refer to myself as First Nations. Why does pretending to be someone I am not make me safer? Why can't I go out without being afraid? I should not feel afraid, and I refuse to fake my heritage. During the summer of 2016, I was not the same person I am today. I spent a lot of my time focusing on what people thought of me. I worried about how I looked, talked, and dressed. I always thought I wasn't good enough. I was afraid of who I was. It took me a long time to realize that there was nothing wrong with me. Once I did, I surrounded myself with people who made me feel better about myself rather than horrible. I learned to pick myself back up, and I felt safe again. Someone who really helped me was my kukum. My kukum, for those of you who don't know, is my grandmother. And apart from being my grandmother, she's an amazing chef, an outstanding mom, she's incredibly funny, and she is a residential school survivor. She has taught me many valuable lessons in my life, and I don't think I would be who I am without her. She knows what it feels like to feel unwanted and hated for who she is. She has faced bullying, discrimination, and racism her entire life. I remember going to her with tears, thinking everything was against me. But she taught me that I was strong enough to make it through, and eventually I started to believe it too. During a Heart of Treaty 6 reconciliation meeting, I was told that the Creator gave me 2 ears and a mouth for a reason. That was to use them to tell my story and to listen and learn from the stories around me. During the past few months, I've had the great opportunity to learn so much about my culture. I've been introduced to campaigns such as the Red Dress Project, which states that each red dress represents one of the women that have gone missing or been murdered, and each filled dress represents someone who has been able to take a stand and make a change for the better. Using the Caros blanket activity, I have gone around the community with the SOAR mentors at LCHS, educating people about the history of my ancestors and what we have gone through. Apart from that, I mentor younger students who have the same fears that I do, some of them barely the age of 12. Through all of this, I learned that I am not alone, and I don't have to be afraid. The girls who have gone missing and the girls who have lost their lives can be the last ones. This doesn't have to keep happening. I am blessed to have Indigenous blood running through my veins, and even more blessed to be proud of it. So I'm going to use these blessings to help the ones who aren't like me, the ones who are cutting off their braids and hurting themselves, the ones who are missing, the ones who are murdered, and the ones still too afraid to speak up for themselves. So many girls went through the same things I did, even worse, but they weren't as fortunate to make it through like I did. They lost their voices. Thousands of Indigenous women are forgotten for their color of their skin. We are stripped of our voices and tossed into the shadows. We sit in darkness hoping that someone will listen to our calls and our screams. It's like trying to balance a light switch between on and off. You try your best to turn the light on, but it always turns off again. We try to forget, but we are silenced and pushed aside. Not anymore. The light will turn on and stay on as long as the sun shines, the river flows, and the grass grows. It may not seem important to you, but what if it were me? And what if it were you? What if it were the people you loved? Look at me standing on this stage because it could have been me. I could have been taken walking to 7-Eleven, and I could have been taken leaving from the movie theaters. It could have been any of the girls you've seen in my pictures tonight, or any of the women sitting around you in the audience. And then what am I? A girl with a powerful voice standing on stage, or just another statistic for more officers and news reporters to ignore? I am Alexa Blyan, I am First Nations, and I refuse to be next. Thank you. Hi, hi.